So, in conclusion, we know that desistance is a process in which a person who has offended abstains from committing crime or being involved in drugs. So, in conclusion, these women, they worked actively to not participate in crime and not participate in the usage of drugs. We know that through this study, race, gender, things such as the status of their motherhood, these all played a major part in how what expectations were set for them. So there was a lot of intersectionality between race and gender and their age and their environment and things like that. Their involvement in the criminal justice system also shaped these expectations. So what exactly they got charged with. So as the interviews throughout the study went on, the answers for these from these women within the interviews, they all changed. Which, when looking at narratives, we know that one of the cons to narratives is that the behaviors sometimes are not consistent. So they might have one answer right now, but as life goes on and their environment change, their answers may begin to change as well. And we also know another con of narratives is they're socially and culturally conditioned. So whatever the norm is for that environment will affect their narrative and how their story is told. So the current policies within the criminal justice system, such as the war on drugs and mass incarceration, these also help shape the stories. That's also what I was saying when it comes to narrative. Us here in North Carolina, our norms may be completely different than somebody in California, so the narratives will shift based on where you are. We do know that, in conclusion, that we found that addiction and incarceration, they overlap each other. So typically someone who has been incarcerated, when they are released, most of the time they end up utilizing drugs, or even before they were incarcerated, they utilized drugs to cause them to be incarcerated. So it was also, what we learned from this study also is that it's important to consider being a female when we think about recidivism. That's because women are expected to do more. They're expected to be caregivers as soon as they're released. And sometimes that causes people or women to sell drugs or even sell their bodies to be that caregiver that the society is expecting them to be. Whereas men are expected to, usually they receive immediate support once they're released, and they're not really expected to uphold the same roles that women do. So throughout the book, they talked about the 12-step program. This was incorporated through each of their stories. And this was basically a plan for the women to desist and move forward from reoffending. Essentially, they wanted to accept the reality that, yes, they had committed a crime, but they did not want to continue to live in that same reality that they had to, of them committing the crime. So this program promoted a lot of hard work, success. You can work hard to get to where you needed to be. If you worked hard enough, you wouldn't reoffend, you wouldn't go back to prison, and that's pretty much what this 12-step program promoted. It helped people, I think it was Dee Dee, to reconnect with her kids, and they just rekindled bonds and stepped away from places where they shouldn't have been and found a new way to live their life. So overall, this program promoted hard work, which earned success despite the environment they are in, which could be inaccurate. So pretty much, as mentioned in the end of the book, it pretty much talked about how a white man who goes to AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, they are not put in the same environment as a Black woman who grew up in a poor neighborhood and they're trying to get away from alcohol. It's not the same environment. So pretty much that's one of the cons of having the 12-step program, is it's promoting this, like, if you do not work hard, or if you do recommit these crimes, or you do end up relapsing and going back into utilizing drugs, then you're weak, instead of showing that maybe it could be the structure of the environment. There could be structural barriers behind it. So pretty much in conclusion, what this whole study has concluded is that gender is important when considering the desistance of prisoners. And they, at the very end, they talked about some different programs that they wanted to, or policies that could be implemented to help prisoners who want to continue to further their life and not really, they want to understand they committed a crime but move forward. And some of these were like certificate of rehabilitation, which would be given to an employer so that they knew that this offender had been through a program. They know that they're not going back to how they used to be. And a time limit on a background check. So these were just some things that the person who was conducting the study set, some policies that they said that can be incorporated to help these offenders from moving forward with their lives. So yeah.